I do think that mental health is something that we should take seriously. I don't think that Harry and Meghan are in a position to be the authorities on it. I appreciate the message, but are they the right people to deliver it? I believe that the answer is no. I just want to start out by saying that I do think that mental health is something that we should take seriously. I think children's mental health is something we should take seriously. And in the future, I would like to have a very serious conversation between you and I about that. We could do it on my podcast, wherever.
Yeah, sure.
I'm happy to delve into that and take that very seriously. But the disclaimer here is that I don't think that Harry and Meghan are in a position to be the authorities on it. I appreciate the message, but are they the right people to deliver it? I believe that the answer is no.
So yeah, I think their organisation is called the Parents Network. And this interview took place at some place near Santa Barbara, at a rather nice kind of sort of hut or cabin in the hills above the sea there, the Pacific Ocean. And it's Harry and Meghan went to meet a group of parents who, all of whom have suffered the tragedy of losing their children, who they later found out were kind of influenced by online activity. So it's a Parents Network, but I couldn't quite work out exactly what it was that this organisation was going to do. Is it trying to set out to protect kids in this respect, or is it just after the fact they're going to look after parents? I wasn't quite sure. But to be honest with you, this was when she talked of her suicidal thoughts. We know when that was. She says it's when she was in Britain and everybody was against her and she didn't like what was going on with the royal family. We later learned that she thought they were a bit racist and all this sort of thing. Now, again, you're right. We have to accept what she says. But when Piers Morgan said, and this was, 3-4 years ago, when he said, well, sorry, I don't believe her. He said that he thought she was making this stuff up for publicity, to play the victim. She sort of got in touch with the head of ITV and said that he should be fired for this. And indeed, although he wasn't fired, well, he kind of was fired because he refused to say sorry. So whilst every sympathy with Meghan for her suicidal thoughts and every sympathy with this project, she's not very good on freedom of speech, is she? If someone wants to say, well, I don't quite believe you, she goes about trying to get them sacked from their job.
Exactly. And yeah, so the Parents Network program, they call this a free support service for parents in the US, UK, and Canada dealing with social media's impact on children. I believe they also introduce other parents that have lost children to each other so that they can kind of utilize each other's strengths and lean on each other after this horrific incident. But, if the objective is to put a spotlight on children that are no longer with us here on this earth because of online bullying, I feel like a much more powerful message would be to focus on those families. I've said this before. I think it's worth repeating. Meghan Markle was suicidal in a castle and fled to America, where she lives with 2 beautiful babies, rescue chickens, and palm trees that hold hands, and a Montecito mansion. She has a loving husband. She survived. She's thriving. These parents go to bed every night with empty beds and bedrooms where their children used to sleep. I think it's wildly inappropriate to make this interview about Meghan. The reporter knows if she asks a question like that, the interview is going to become about Meghan. Meghan is savvy enough to know that now the line that everybody's going to use is that she's only scraped the surface, which sounds like a veiled threat to the royal family about what she could say going forward about her time in the British royal family. I think Harry and Meghan not only lack credibility in this particular topic, I think that they lack self-awareness. Where is their concern for their family's mental health? Catherine's, when Omid Scobie was accusing her of racism. You're going to stomp out cyberbullying, yet you continue to include model Chrissy Teigen in your world, in your friendship circle, in your jam promotion. Chrissy Teigen told a 16-year-old girl on the internet to go kill herself, Kevin. I mean, that's the child
That's the
being
problem,
bullied
isn't
right
it?
there. I mean, so I just think that these two are not the vehicle. I applaud the program. These two are not the vehicle. I was paralyzed after the Oprah Winfrey interview. I was not in a position to question whether or not the royal family was racist. We all had to take Meghan Markle's word for it after that interview. Otherwise, we were told that we were racist for not pushing back on that claim. Suicide, mental health, I'm never going to touch that because it is such a sensitive topic. But it's as if that they use these extreme topics to kind of pin you in a corner where you're unable to question their motives, unable to question their sincerity and the authenticity of their objectives.
And what I'd like to see, Kinsey, is exactly what the Parents Network has achieved in 6 months' time or a year's time. How many times have we heard them before launching their various projects? And you never really hear of it again. Archewell seems to specialise in great charity initiatives that never come to very much. What has the Archewell Foundation really achieved in the big picture ever, really? Just seems to be virtue signalling announcements. We're going to do this. We're going to help that. We're going to help these people. We feel so sorry for these people. Right, we've been on TV now. Let's go. Let's move on. Nothing else ever seems to happen, does it?
Remember Meghan's 40 for 40 initiative for her 40th birthday? This weekend was her 43rd birthday, and on her 40th birthday, she launched with Melissa McCartney, the actress, that campaign where women were going to mentor younger women for 40 hours. There was no follow-up. You know, there were supposed to be these big celebrities involved mentoring younger women. We never got a follow-up to that. I think you're absolutely right. There is a blitz, a PR blitz to announce something good that they're doing, and then they'll add themselves to other charities that are already pursuing something. Remember when Archewell donated funds or something to a global vaccination group during the COVID pandemic so that vaccines were going to be available worldwide. Archewell kind of took that whole campaign and took credit for it when they just kind of inserted themselves in something that existed already. So we haven't seen Archewell do anything start to finish. I don't really think we've seen anything other than maybe they built a playground. They helped build a playground in Texas after there was a shooting at an elementary school there. But when it comes to tangible evidence, when it comes to proof, there's little to none over what Archewell actually executes.
Well, the concept of the interview was for them to promote the work of the Archewell Foundation in helping children up in the online space, as it were, and understanding the pitfalls and offering help to people. And obviously there was a couple, excuse me, whose son I think committed suicide. And so at the heart of it, it was a good idea, but you could see it felt like a bit of a puff for Meghan and Harry. And this, I think, we should be talking about what Archewell Foundation is doing, which I think is laudable and very relevant. But at the same time, what we've ended up doing is talking about her.
I mean, in fairness with Meghan, surely talking about her own struggles is really what people want to, well, certainly what the journalists want, because if someone else if Joe Public had set up the Parents Network, they wouldn't get any publicity. I mean, the fact is that because she's been through what she believes she's been through, and obviously she's had lots of criticism from many people, including in the station, she feels that she needs to help others here. But you're sort of saying that the focus went swiftly onto Meghan when probably it should have gone on to the work that they're doing, perhaps.
I think that seems to me what they need to do to rehabilitate themselves in the eyes of the public is to focus on their work and less on themselves. Now, clearly, the split from the royal family was not an easy one. We don't know the full picture, but as the Queen said, and we always say, recollections may vary about how it came about.
Yes.
But at the same time, what they're trying to do is, no one's just saying that this is not a good thing. This interview felt very staged, but that is exactly what Harry and Meghan want, even to the extent she even says when the person presenting the package says, I wasn't expecting you to answer that. So it felt like that perhaps asked that question, perhaps it feels like there were, boundaries where they were expected not to go, but maybe they just opened up something that has become more newsworthy. But what it does mean is that perhaps she has got more stories to tell, which might sit uneasy with the rest of the royal family, because she comes out and might say her stories, but the royal family, in their defense, don't say anything. So again, it may look like if we do get to that stage, it will be a one-sided story again, which is part of the problem and criticism that's leveled at Harry and Meghan. They're always having a go at the royal family, who at the same time don't say anything in response. But at the heart of what she was doing, absolutely what Harry and Meghan are doing, no one could say that it's not a good thing, because you just have to go online to find that both Meghan and Harry are subject also to a huge amount of sort of trolling and some of it most unseemly. So I do have a huge deal of sympathy for them as well with the sort of stuff that goes out onto social media. But what they have got to make sure is that they try and turn the story maybe away from them, and then they concentrate on the good work that Archwell Foundation, at the heart of it, is trying to do. And this is, no one saying what they're trying to do here is a bad thing, and I'm sure everyone wishes them well to make sure it is a success and achieves some of the goals that they have in mind for it.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back on the TV, they've given another interview, we talked about it a little bit last week, to CBS. This time, though, they're talking about, just for a change, mental health.
When you've been through any level of pain or trauma, I believe part of our healing journey, certainly part of mine, is being able to be really open about it. And I haven't really scraped the surface on my experience, but I do think that I would never want someone else to feel that way.
Well, it's one of those things where that I've worked in the mental health sphere quite a bit. I was on the board of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention San Diego chapter. I lost my stepmother to suicide. And the thing about suicide and suicidal ideation is that, number one, it's contagious. And number two, it doesn't really know any boundaries. So everyone from Meghan and Harry can feel these things, to Rishi Sunak, to the guy who's fixing your road down the street. And so, just because I don't necessarily like them as people, it doesn't mean that I can say I don't think that they've felt these things, or I don't think that they can feel this pain, because I think you absolutely can. You can speculate for yourself as to why you think that might be, but in a lot of cases, it is desperately serious. And I agree with one thing that they're doing, and that's going after social media and saying that it needs to be more responsible, especially when it comes to kids. Kids are under an enormous amount of pressure today, both mentally, physically, and with all of the criticism that comes at them online, things that you and I did not experience. We were so fortunate that we didn't. I really do agree with what they're doing, and so I can't bash them. They've got a heck of a platform. But every time we do see them on TV, we hear quite a bit of whinging, and then we hear just a little bit of substance. And I appreciate the substance, while I still just, am not terribly fond of them as people. I can just appreciate the substance. And I wish that they did make it more about other people, which they seem to be doing a little bit in branching out with kids. Yeah. And again, I can appreciate that. The thing about mental health is it does seem to be affecting more and more and more of us. And we don't seem to be seeing a lot of advancements in that world. And that's what I would like to see. You have a boatload of money. Why don't we get some money into research? Why don't we find out how these things are really affecting kids? Why don't we really make that push? You can do that in a very substantive way, and that's something that I would love to see. And rather than just saying, social media is toxic, which we all know it is, use your influence to go and have a conversation with Elon Musk, or go and talk to, Mark Zuckerberg, and see what you can get them to agree to do.
if possible.
They have a whole lot more access than you or I.
Well, exactly.
And I like to think we're both very powerful people, but we are just not that powerful, are we?
Well, we just aren't in comparison, but that is the trouble. But again, the thing that I think turns people off the two of them is that it's totally always about them. It's never really about anybody else.
Meghan turned 43 on Sunday, but all eyes were on her and Prince Harry's latest joint interview. They sat down with CBS to discuss the Parents Network program. Now, this is a free support service for parents in the US, UK, and Canada dealing with social media's impact on children. The pair shared their own worries for their children and stressed how important online safety is. Meghan reiterated her own battles with online bullying and mental health. She said she hoped that opening up might help others going through the same thing. I'm sure there were the best intentions here, but there has been a lot of pushback when it comes to this interview here in the States. I saw one major boutique here in LA that is always at war with Chrissy Teigen post that interview with Meghan and then say, Meghan talking about online bullying, here's Chrissy Teigen, and they went into Chrissy Teigen going after a 16-year-old girl years ago. I mean, should the focus be on the families that have lost children? Should the focus be on the children versus Meghan going back into the story we had originally heard on Oprah? Is this the right strategy for Harry and Meghan to launch this program that actually could be incredibly beneficial to the world?
Well, listen, the whole issue of mental health is something that Meghan has been passionate about for a long time. I mean, certainly before her days as a member of the royal family. Of course, that controversial interview with Oprah threw up so much. There was one very famous TV presenter who actually lost their job, as we both well know, over questioning, Meghan's mental health and the claims that she was making about her mental health. This is her opportunity to speak about her experience of mental health, and this is, and I think she says, doesn't she? She'll take, if she gets knocked about this, she'll take the hit. She'll take the hit because she thinks it's very, very important that she is talking about something that is considered a stigma. And I have to say, Kinsey, that I feel that anyone with a public platform like that is able to sort of raise awareness about mental health is ultimately doing something good. I think sort of when it comes down to that Oprah interview, of course, all the controversy over that, the racism row, the mental health claims that Meghan mentioned, all seem to come back in a rather ugly way. So I think she takes a risk in doing it, but she recognises that, and she says she's willing to take the brickbats that are going to come with it. I think in terms of this cause that they're pushing, in terms of raising awareness about online safety and protecting children in today's world when it comes to online safety is a hugely important subject, and one that absolutely needs awareness raised around it. It's something that Prince William is hugely involved with over here. Harry's also involved because he gets involved with tech giants in a different way. And I think when you consider the platforms that they've got and the profiles and the access, they're actually really powerful advocates for better online safety for children. And I think it doesn't matter what you think of Meghan Markle, whether you're a fan or not, the safety of our children online is hugely important in the world that we live in. Well, listen, Meghan is certainly not stupid. She's an incredibly intelligent woman, and I think she knows that every comment that she makes is going to be dissected and analysed and is going to generate headlines. I mean, she was slightly provocative, Kinsey, I think, in terms of when she's talking about her own experience. She sort of said she'd barely scratched the surface. I mean, that sort of, I'm not saying it was a threat, but it sort of felt quite sort of threatening, I suppose, a little ominous, in that, the suggestion being, gosh, there's so much more I could say that I haven't yet. Well, is that the plan? Is that going to be the intention, to put more information out about that period of time? We don't know is the answer. But of course, every time that subject of her emotional and mental well-being when she was part of the royal family is revisited, she obviously feels that she was hard done by, that she wasn't heard, that only one side of the story's been out there, and it all seems to suggest that she's still got more she wants to say. And I think that is probably concerning for the royal family, but as much as it's concerning, it's also not going to do anything to help those already strained familial relationships. And I think this is part of the problem in terms of Meghan's relationship with the royal family and the wider royal family, is that there has just been such a breakdown of trust, and there is a genuine nervousness about what else she may want to say. And when she says things like, well, I've only scratched the surface, it suggests, I think, that you know, she may well be planning to tell more of her story.
There's really one big story in town today, and that is the Meghan and Harry interview. They have spoken, Kinsey. We have heard from them. Oh, hurrah! You know how we love it when they speak and they impart their words of wisdom on us, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, well, and I thought it was interesting because all the headlines said their first big sit down since Oprah Winfrey, and I was like, what about that 6 hours of Netflix? Was that not the exact same thing?
Yeah, but
like, let's not pretend that we don't get plenty of this.
That was them just sort of speaking to the camera about anything they wanted to say. No one was actually asking them questions, which was sort of challenging, which was, quite similar to this interview, because they weren't really asked that many challenging questions. So firstly, what did you think of it?
I thought that it was... I thought it lacked self-awareness. You know, if we're being honest, they should have focused on the families that have actually lost children to suicide. I mean, they have a collection of parents that lost their babies, that go to bed every night with empty bedrooms, and they can't hug their children goodnight and kiss their children goodnight. That should have been the focus of this piece, not 2019, something that happened in 2019 with Meghan, who today lives an incredibly blessed life. She's incredibly lucky, and goes to sleep with her babies, is wildly loved by her husband, and has a great life. And so I just thought this seems off to have Meghan talking about an incident from 2019 when the focus should be on the parents that have lost their children, and those children's stories, and why those children were important, and what the world is missing out on after losing them. At the end of the day, she's here. She loves her new life. She's living where she's always wanted to live, among celebrities, among Oprah, among Tyler Perry. I mean, these are her neighbors. These are the people that pick up the phone when she calls. She has the life of her dreams. So I don't want to hear about, I don't want to, let's focus on the victims here. And if that's the route they want to go, I think that people would be more apt to listen if they were hearing the stories of the actual families that were affected by this.
And let's talk about the victims as well, because let's not forget as well, many fans of Meghan and Harry, one of whom actually appeared in their documentary on Netflix, did the most horrific bullying of Princess Catherine online as well.
Yeah, well, I don't even want to give him oxygen, but
no,
there is an entire,
and I'm not naming. You're right.
There's an entire folder that's probably in a vault in Kensington Palace with stories of Meghan Markle bullying her staff. I mean, it's all a joke.
Yes.
The palace could blow up their entire agenda by saying, you know what? Here's the report. Here's a list of every time Meghan made somebody cry at their desk within Kensington Palace. Here's every time Meghan Markle woke somebody up at 3:30 in the morning, demanding something get done before dawn. I mean, that report exists, and the only reason the palace hasn't released it is because they don't want any more animosity, and they don't want any more drama from these two. And despite the palace waving the white flag, Harry and Meghan continue to poke the bear.
Interesting insight, I think, into William and Kate and their parenting approach, and just how different it is to previous generations of royals. So, whereas traditionally royal children have been very much the domain of the royal nursery, and royal parents have been, I suppose, quite remote because of the nature of their work, we're seeing William and Kate do things very differently. And I think, the reason for this story was that they've disappeared from the sort of public spotlight. They're enjoying this wonderful, very down-to-earth, normal bucket and spade holiday in Norfolk, although there have been rumours that they've escaped to Mustique. We'll discuss that a little bit later on. But I think this whole idea of their approach to parenting has been so very refreshing and different that it always seems to attract attention. And as I say, this was the story in the Sunday newspaper sort of pointing out that they don't have a nanny that lives with them, just how hands-on they are at home with George, Charlotte and Louis, and that, you know, even throughout all of her cancer ordeal, her treatment and her recovery, you know, that the princess has been really hands-on in all of that as well. They're living, don't forget, in a 4-bedroom apartment. They could be in the 21-room apartment at Kensington Palace, but they've chosen to have a much quieter, low-key existence. And with that, a more hands-on approach to royal parenting.
You and I were kind of visualizing the Wales family all sitting around the living room, watching the Olympics, engaged in the games. This is a sports-driven family. I cannot imagine how emotionally invested they all are in the Olympics this year.
They will be. I mean, I'm thinking back to 2012 and those wonderful pictures of William and Kate, you know, so young, so in love, so carefree, you know, before children, and, you know, when hugging each other when England did well. And Great Britain are doing really well in this tournament. You know, they're scooping the goals. I think they're currently in 5th place and they're doing really well. So I think there's a bit of speculation as to whether we will see William pop up at the Olympics. I would personally say don't hold your breath, but will they be watching it at home on the screen at home? 100%. I mean, we know that they love sports. As you pointed out, there was that lovely picture of 2 of the children watching the football in the final, Charlotte and Louis, who didn't get to go to Berlin to watch the match. William, of course, took George, but it didn't matter. They were still involved with the excitement of that England final. And I think as a family, they'll be involved in the excitement of Great Britain doing so well in the Olympics. Because as you say, Kinsey, they're a very, very sporty family. And watching sport as much as taking part in it is a real treat for them. Well, there have been rumours that they have either taken or are on a holiday in Mustique, and I don't want to speculate too much because I think this is a family that needs privacy more than anything else, and are very deserving of a holiday if that's indeed what they've been able to do. And you know what, Kinsey, what I will say is that if they've been able to go to Mustique, it's not easy to get to Mustique. It's a long flight and then a small private flight to the island. It's a long distance. It would suggest, I think, that the princess is doing really well. So I hope that they've had a Mustique holiday. I know how much she absolutely loves it there. I mean, long before she married William, she would enjoy family holidays with the Middletons in Mustique, and they would rent some wonderful villas. They've got good friends over there. They are never photographed. They are always left on their own, and they always have a wonderful time. So I hope that they're either there sunning themselves, because it's not very sunny here in the UK at the moment. We've had a rotten summer. And I think it's a good indication, if they have been able to enjoy it, that the princess is doing really well. I think they're mindful not to be seen to be too ostentatious when it comes to their holidays. You don't see them on very lavish trips. I think that's why, for the most part, they tend to holiday around the UK, because they're promoting Britain as a holiday destination. They're keeping it real. But every so often they do go off to Mustique. And as I say, there have been sources reporting that they have been out there. And I think if they have, then that's got to be a good sign, certainly in terms of the Princess of Wales's health, because as you know, we're not getting regular updates from Kensington Palace. We don't have a time frame in terms of when she's going to return to work. But I think every time we hear that she's doing something like this, it's encouraging, because it gives us a sense of optimism that she's doing well in her recovery.
They've announced their next weird pretend royal tour. So having a few months back gone to one of the most dangerous countries in the world, Nigeria, we've got to hand it to them. They found somewhere that's more dangerous, Colombia. This from a guy, Prince Harry, who says, I will never bring my wife, and by extension I think his kids, he hasn't mentioned his kids, but he won't bring his wife back to Britain because he says it's too unsafe, because he won't get a gun guard from the police. You know, he says that that makes it way too hazardous to bring his family back to Britain, and yet he's off to Nigeria, and now he's going to even more dangerous Colombia. What goes on in his head?
Yeah, I think just this is further proof that this is all a hissy fit, that Prince Harry is is pitching because he wants to make his father look like the bad guy. The Daily Beast reported over the weekend that Harry really felt like the king should step in the way that the Queen had stepped in for Prince Andrew to ensure that he would continue to get security. But the king, from the king's standpoint, Harry has entered into litigation, and at this point it would be absolutely inappropriate for him to try to step in and to manipulate the circumstances after litigation has been brought. To obtain security in the UK, Harry, like any other high-powered visitor that wants police protection, just has to give 28 days notice to the British security forces. He has to list the location he intends to visit, present a detailed itinerary of his plans. He can use private security, but private guards can't be armed. And look, I think that he is immensely safe, much safer in the UK than he is in Colombia.
Of course he is. This ongoing legal row he has going with the British government, with the Home Office here, is purely down to his status. What he can't take, this is my view, but I know a lot of people agree with me, he cannot take that he now has officially a lower status than the rest of the royal family. In other words, the rest of the royal family, the main royals, when they go anywhere, they get armed police protection. Because he's given up front line royal duties and moved to California, he doesn't get it anymore, and he can't take it. He wants to be the same as his brother, indeed his Uncle Andrew. And when you say the Queen tried to help Prince Andrew, well, for all Andrew's many faults, and let's face it, they are far too many, he's never implied that the royal family are racist. Whereas with Harry, it's a kind of a different story. So he made his own bed, and he's going to have to lie on it in a little while in Colombia. I hope he enjoys it.
This is Harry and Meghan choosing to visit one of the world's most dangerous countries. I mean, do you know what we should call this show? We should just call this Pump Up the Hypocrisy. Because every single time it's hypocrisy. Because, of course, they're very security conscious. They say that they can't go anywhere. Last week we were analysing the fact that Prince Harry said that he can't bring Meghan to the UK because of such security concerns. Colombia is apparently okay.
It is just another example of, I think, Prince Harry. What I think it says is that Prince Harry is overdoing it on his UK dramatics about security in the UK, because you can't tell me that Colombia or Nigeria are safer for your wife than the UK. If Prince Harry abides by the guidelines that have been set out for him in the UK, giving them that 28-day notice, giving them a full itinerary of what his plans are, there is an option that he will get the type of security that he wants. And I imagine that if he's there with his wife, those odds would increase for him. Harry is just so stubborn and doesn't want anybody to know his itinerary, is so paranoid. He doesn't want anybody else to know his itinerary. He's afraid somebody will say, oh, Harry plans on going to the zoo on Tuesday, like anybody cares. But I think that it just proves that a lot of what's going on with the UK and the millions that are being spent are for theatrics. And the reality is he's much safer in the UK than in either one of those countries.
Well, the US has rated Colombia as a level 3 security risk. So it is absolutely ridiculous that they would go there, especially the optics. I mean, sometimes I just do think, I mean, maybe it's Harry, and I've said this before, he's not the sharpest tool in the box. Would you not think, while you were having a major disagreement with the British authorities and security services about safety, that maybe a visit to Colombia during that time might just somewhat invalidate your point? I mean, he's not bright, is he? He can't be. Or do they just not know? Or do you think they're just clueless? I don't know.
I wanted to touch base with you about the Colombia tour. This is probably one of the most shocking new developments when it comes to the Sussexes story over the last few weeks for me, because Prince Harry and Meghan have announced that they are looking forward to a trip to Colombia. Now, this is one of the world's most dangerous countries, and we spoke recently about Prince Harry's sit down with ITV, where he said, I don't feel comfortable bringing my wife back to the UK over security issues. This trip, scheduled before the first global ministerial conference on ending violence against children in November, will proceed despite travel alerts from the UK and the US governments over terrorism, civil unrest, and kidnapping risks. The US has rated Colombia at a level 3 security risk, heightening concerns about the Duke and Duchess's safety. The decision to go has sparked a major debate. I know you've probably seen some of it on TV, some of it online, especially given Prince Harry's ongoing security battle in the UK. This is a head scratcher to me. I sit back and I think, you say one thing, you do another. Is this not contradictory to your statements that you recently made about your wife's safety?